You have the right to apply for asylum in that country that you first crossed into. You do not have the right to pass through 5 other countries because you want free stuff from Americans. And it also seems to me that if you break our laws to enter our country, you should forfeit any claim to asylum because you've already expressed your intention to disobey our laws. What do we need to do to reinstate these principles and assure that future presidents can't circumvent them?
Well, the asylum system is one of the biggest loopholes in our immigration law right now that's routinely exploited. That's why we need legislation to actually codify provisions to address the problems that you've mentioned. For example, to make it clear that you must enter through a legal port of entry, that you're not going to qualify for asylum if you've passed through a safe third country, or if you could have relocated within your own country. We're getting a lot of people at our border now who've been firmly resettled in other countries before coming here to take advantage of the open border and the parole policies.
So are those principles missing from our current asylum law and we need to place them in it, or are they simply being ignored?
They are really, the clarification is missing. I think that there are different ways you could interpret our law, but they're not going to be as effective. We need H.R. 2 closed a lot of those loopholes.
Your guidance on what else needs to be done to assure that this doesn't happen again would be much appreciated. Mr. Fabricatore, the sanctuary policies, what do those laws do exactly?
They don't protect American citizens. They protect criminal aliens. And we've seen that happen in the U.S. with the rise of Tren de Aragua in these sanctuary cities.
Well, in fact, it's the immigrant community from which they arise that is the most victimized by them, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
I think that a family at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York is far more likely to be preyed upon by these cartels and criminal gangs than somebody living in Scarsdale, for example.
Initially, they prey on their own, sir, yes.
So what can we do about these sanctuary jurisdictions?
Well, we need to look at any kind of defunding that we can do. And look, we need to make sure that ICE is going into these communities and they can work with local law enforcement. If we're really serious about keeping American citizens safe, we have to be serious about letting law enforcement work together to keep American citizens safe. And that's not going to happen as long as we have these sanctuary jurisdictions that don't allow local law enforcement to give information to ICE. Sanctuary jurisdiction in Colorado, probation cannot even let ICE know when somebody gets taken out of jail and put on probation. So that's someone that's convicted of a crime that's going out onto the street, and that probation officer cannot let ICE know when they're going on probation.
Mr. Newman, my time's about to expire, but I would like to ask you to put in a response regarding the TPS and parole abuses of the past administration and what we can do to assure that that's never done again. But I'm now out of time, so if you could give that to us in writing, we will pay very close attention to it. With that, I believe we are ready to conclude today's hearing. I want to thank our witnesses for appearing. I think this was a very illuminating hearing on both sides. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the witnesses or additional material for the record. And with that, and without objection, the hearing is adjourned. The America, a new golden age, we all pray, and it's a privilege for all of us to have a small role in this crucial period in our history. I want to begin by welcoming the new members of the subcommittee. We have Russell Fry, who will be joining us shortly. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee, but this will be his first stint on the Subcommittee on Immigration. He's in his 2nd term, a former Eagle Scout, and has his degree from the Law School of South Carolina. Glenn Grothman, also a veteran of the Judiciary Committee, served in the Wisconsin State Senate. His JD is from Wisconsin. Brad Knott, who is here as a freshman, worked as a prosecutor with a JD from Wake Forest. Bob Oldner, who is here present, served in the Missouri State Senate with a JD from St. Louis University. Derek Schmidt, freshman from Kansas's 2nd District, former Attorney General of the state of Kansas, former Majority Leader of the Kansas Senate, and with a JD from Georgetown, and finally Brandon Gill, freshman member from Texas, an investment banker. We welcome all of them to the subcommittee today. Our ranking member, Ms. Jayapal, is absent today because of the death of her father, and our hearts go out to her and her grieving family. She'll be represented today by our former chairman and ranking member of the subcommittee, Ms. Lofgren, to whom I'll yield to introduce the new Democratic member.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have now on the subcommittee Mr. Nadler, Ms. Scanlon, Ms. Crockett, Mr. Cohen. I think they are new to the subcommittee. The other members have served before, and we're looking forward to a productive year. And with that, I would yield back for our opening statements.
Thank you. The subcommittee meets today to hear testimony to assist us in restoring integrity, security, and enforcement to our immigration laws, and we'll begin with opening statements. Our nation has just suffered the largest illegal mass migration in history, deliberately engineered, abetted, and encouraged by President Joe Biden and his allies in Congress. For 4 years, the American people have endured the effect of this calculated lawlessness. Schools flooded with non-English speaking students, hospitals packed with illegals demanding free health care, Americans pushed out of homeless shelters to make room for illegals, an estimated $150 billion a year taken from struggling American families to pay for free food, free legal services, free transportation, free housing, free clothing, free cell phones for all of those who have broken into our country. Millions of American workers have been displaced, driving down wages and drying up opportunities for our own young people. The deadly fentanyl trade coming across our open border now claims the lives of tens of thousands of Americans every year. And worst of all, among these illegal migrants have come the most violent, dangerous, and malevolent criminals and criminal gangs in the world, while sanctuary laws and democratic jurisdictions protect them as they prey on innocent Americans. Every immigration-related agency in Biden's executive branch had a part in destroying the integrity of our immigration system. I'll offer you just a few examples. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services did nothing to stop extensive fraud in mass parole programs that it implemented and delayed adjudication of legal immigration applications in favor of those for illegal aliens. The State Department gave U.S. taxpayer money to non-governmental organizations to hire foreign nationals to tell other foreign nationals how to circumvent U.S. immigration laws. The Department of Homeland Security refused to prevent fraud in visa programs and brought interior immigration enforcement to a standstill. Customs and Border Protection abused its authority by paroling in over 531,000 foreign nationals in just one categorical parole program. The Department of Health and Human Services ignored its duty to determine whether unaccompanied alien children who arrived at the border had criminal backgrounds and were in danger to themselves or others before releasing them into our country. The Office of Refugee Resettlement used taxpayer dollars to fund housing for illegal aliens. The Department of Justice told its immigration judges to stop adjudicating cases. And it reversed common-sense Trump-era opinions that prevented asylum fraud. Time and again, we were told by the Biden administration and congressional Democrats that our border was secure. We were told there was no national security or public safety risk. We were told the administration could do nothing more to prevent illegal immigration. But Americans knew better. And they finally got tired of feeling unsafe in their own towns, tired of seeing illegal aliens sleeping in their community schools, recreation centers, airports, and police stations, and tired of footing the bills for foreign nationals who showed nothing but contempt for U.S. law. And on November the 5th last year, they delivered a resounding victory to President Donald Trump with a clear and unambiguous mandate to stop this insanity. Yesterday, President Trump, within hours of returning to the presidency, issued 11 executive orders to once again secure our borders, recover our sovereignty, protect our people, and restore the rule of law. The wreckage of the Biden years will take many years to repair. Between the 6 million illegals deliberately trafficked into our country and another 2 million known gotaways who evaded an utterly overwhelmed Border Patrol, an illegal and unvetted population the size of the state of Washington has been ushered into our country. That population includes at least 99 terrorists that we know of, more than 1.4 million aliens who are right now defying court orders of removal, 7.6 million aliens on the ICE non-detained docket. President Trump's executive orders reinstate the successful Remain in Mexico program that had brought phony asylum claims to a trickle until Joe Biden abolished it on his first day in office. They revoke Biden's anti-enforcement executive orders and policies and make clear to the world that the only pathway into the United States is to obey our laws. And after the largest illegal mass migration in history, this administration must now undertake the largest.
So what do you do for a living?
I'm the founder and CEO of an e-com startup.
Wow, how much do you make from that?
4 to 5K a month, but we're growing.
How did you get started with a business like this?
Well, I had a 9-to-5 job and no substantial savings, so obviously I needed help. I turned to One Day. It's an MBA for entrepreneurs, and they gave me a mentor and helped me get me started.
What's a mentor?
Someone who's already run a successful business before mine. His name is Mike. Hi, Mike. He's awesome. Instead of just telling me what to do, he helped me start the business.
That's awesome. So did you have to quit your day job to get started?
Oh no, I did part-time for the first 6 months, and then when I started generating enough revenue, then I quit.
Oh, it must have been super expensive.
No, not really. Compared to other MBAs, and you can do it monthly. You can pay monthly.
Was it scary to launch your own business?
Oh, God, yes. But my mentor supported me, as well as the other founders that I met on the program. And I mean, it's a real MBA. It's a real MBA degree. So even if it didn't work out, I'd be fine.
So would you recommend One Day to your friends?
Yeah, sure. You can go to oneday.io, and I think they offer free mentor sessions.
Is broken. We need to make necessary reforms and then vigorously enforce the law. We need to provide the resources necessary to secure the border and provide that only those who are permitted entry to the United States are, in fact, so admitted. The resources should include adequate personnel, technology, and other tools to allow for the orderly entry of only those who secured the proper permission for entry. But we also need to change the law, to reform the law. And when we look to the administration, I think sometimes we should look in the mirror, because the necessary reform of immigration law is a failure of Congress. We have tried over the years to improve the law, and in every case have failed. With our immigration system broken and no longer functioning as it was once intended, change is necessary. Now, I would include that from families separated due to overly punitive laws, to a dysfunctional employment-based system, mired in unworkable backlogs, to a lengthy and overly complex asylum process that has been exploited by transnational criminal organizations preying upon the desperate. The Immigration and Nationality Act screams for reform. The failure to do that, I believe, as the chairman has indicated, did lead to an election of someone who promised to engage in mass deportations, which I don't believe is necessarily the answer to the challenge that we face. Without reform of the law, the executive is now trying to use a section of the law, 212F, in a way that it was probably never intended, and in the past the courts have disallowed. The frustration with our immigration border problem has also led the president to engage in a direct attack on the Constitution. The 14th Amendment says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. That's pretty clear. And there's, going back to the adoption of this amendment, there's never been a question about if you're born here, you're an American. But there's a direct assault on that. And the idea that this is being done in the effort to preserve public safety, I think is belied by the other executive action taken by the president just yesterday, where the President Trump pardoned hundreds of felons who violently attacked police officers on January 6th. The decision to release violent criminals into our community makes America less safe. More than 1,500 criminals were pardoned, including, and I'll just mention three, Steve Cappuccio, who ripped off Officer Daniel Hodges' gas mask and beat him in the face while he was stuck in a door, and the attack was so violent that Cappuccio held his phone in his mouth so he could beat Officer Hobbs with both hands. DJ Rodriguez, who joined a mob attacking Officer Michael Fanone and repeatedly shocked him in the neck with a taser, causing him to lose consciousness and suffer a heart attack. And David Dempsey, who climbed over other rioters to get officers where he stomped on at least one officer's head, beat officers with a flagpole, a crutch, and a broken piece of furniture, and sprayed officers' faces with pepper spray. Don't tell me that the motivation for immigration crackdown is public safety when we release these violent criminals back into our communities. Mr. Chairman, as you know, I used to teach immigration law, and I well understand the need for reform. But I do hope that we will require executive actions to comply with existing law and turn our attention to the necessary reforms that is really our province here in the United States Congress. And with that, I yield back.
The chair is now pleased to recognize the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the chairman was exactly right in his opening statement. On day one of the Biden administration, they made three decisions. They said, we're no longer going to build the wall. We're no longer going to remain in Mexico. And when you get to our border, you will not be detained. You will be released. And guess what? Everybody came. It was deliberate. It was intentional. It was premeditated. They did it to the country. And now it's time to fix that, as the chairman pointed out. I mean, think about it. What they said was no wait, no wall, no detention. Everybody came. And we shouldn't be surprised that who wouldn't want to come to the greatest country ever? But you got to do it legally. That's the problem. And so yesterday, the president started what the American people said to do on November 5th. He started with those 11 executive orders that the chairman talked about. And this hearing is to highlight what took place over the last 4 years and what we have to do to fix the problem the American people elected us to fix. So I appreciate the good work our chairman has done over these last several years. Good work he did on H.R. 2, the work he's doing with this key subcommittee on this key issue. This is critically important. And our job, one of our jobs, this is reconciliation, we Republicans understand this, is to make sure we have the funds available to execute and get accomplished the executive orders the administration, the president put in place over the last 24 hours. So that's our task, and I appreciate, again, the work of this committee, our staff, and our great chairman of this key subcommittee. With that, I yield back.
Chair now recognizes the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, Mr. Jamie Raskin of Maryland, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The chairman began by saying the point here is to restore the rule of law. Restore the rule of law. Can you even pretend to do that if you stand by and support Donald Trump, who on day one, as the chairman of the committee just said, day one of his presidency pardoned 1,500 insurrectionists, including hundreds of people who violently assaulted and attacked American police officers. Let's just take one person who is free today, Julian Cater, who had been convicted after having every due process protection, the right to counsel, the right to cross-examine witnesses, the right to introduce evidence, but they had him completely. They knew exactly what happened. Most of this was videotaped so the whole world could see it. Well, Julian Cater repeatedly violently assaulted our officer protecting us in Congress, Officer Brian Sicknick, who then proceeded to have several strokes and died on January the 7th, 2021, the next day. The family of Officer Sicknick is absolutely devastated and demolished by what's just happened. I invite any of my colleagues, including the members new to this committee who maybe weren't here on January 6th, and didn't experience the trauma of that violent insurrection when we saw a mob marauding through here yelling, "Hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence," and looking to assassinate Nancy Pelosi. And now you have the temerity to come forward and say this is about public safety? How much safer are we now with these 1,500 criminals at large in Washington, D.C., and going out into the country? Are you vouching that these people are not going to be attacking any other police officers? Are you vouching that they're no longer a threat to public safety? What an outrage. What a scandal. Well, the hearing has been called not on trying to deal with the public safety crisis created by the president on day one of his presidency, but on immigration. Now, time and again, Democrats have reached across the aisle to fix our immigration system by finding common ground through compromise. We did it in 1986 with a Democratic-led House and a Republican-led Senate when we passed the immigration reform signed into law by President Reagan 4 decades ago. In 2013, under President Obama, Democrats worked with Senate Republicans on a sweeping immigration reform bill, only to have House Republicans kill it because it threatened Speaker Boehner's grip on power. Last year, under President Biden, Democrats worked with Republican Senator Lankford to produce a tough border security deal with increased border patrol, with increased border technology, with increased asylum judges at the border, but President Trump and House Republicans openly and aggressively tanked the deal. They sank the ship, openly rejecting a bipartisan border agreement hailed by the most conservative Republicans in the Senate because they preferred to have a security crisis to run on than an actual border solution. And yet, as Democrats, we stand ready again to work with our colleagues to fix the broken immigration system. Today, unlawful crossings at the border are much lower than they were when President Trump left office. We made progress. Now is the time for us to tackle the daunting task of finding compromise and pragmatic solutions to fix the system that has not been updated in decades, a system that relegates millions of people to the shadows and leaves other people in limbo. Let's secure the border. Let's make it a lot harder to get into America illegally and a lot easier to get into America lawfully. That's what America wants to see. Let's not use immigration to destroy our Constitution. Unbelievable that a lot of my friends on the other side of the aisle are sitting by idly while Donald Trump proposes by executive order to destroy Section 1 of the 14th Amendment.
Schedule a doctor's appointment, turned in expenses, hit the gym, got to your to-do list, eat healthy today, take your vitamins. Yeah, life gets busy. But adding nutritional support, not complicated. One-a-day vitamins are formulated to support healthy energy metabolism with B vitamins to help convert food to fuel, healthy muscle function, and immune skin and bone health. It's kind of a multitasking vitamin. Grab your one-a-day vitamins at your favorite retailer today.
To overturn the Dred Scott decision. Well, we're obviously going to have some differences moving forward because they don't want real solutions. They just want to demagogue the immigration issue. That doesn't move America forward. It's just like they demagogued the issue of inflation. They said they were going to bring down prices in rent, in utilities, energy costs. They said they were going to bring down the price of groceries. Not a single peep from them about that on day one. No, it's just about releasing all the violent insurrectionists, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers who are out there today saying that they want revenge. Now, that's the real program for America. But let's hear what their specific proposals are about immigration. If they make sense, then we will get behind them. But if it's just more demagoguery, Mr. Chairman, I'm afraid we're going to have to let it pass. Thank you, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman for reminding all of us why the people voted as they did on November the 5th. The chair would now ask unanimous consent that the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Baumgartner, be permitted to sit on the dais for this hearing. Without objection, so ordered. Without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record, and we'll now introduce today's witnesses. We have with us today, no stranger to this subcommittee, Mr. John Fabrigatore, Mr. Fabritori is a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation.
Ma'am,
Purposes of general.
I just wanted to confirm that the member sitting in can only ask questions if he's yielded time. Isn't that our rule? Okay.
That's the rule.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Mr. John Fabritori is a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation and an advisory board member with the National Immigration Center for Enforcement. Mr. Fabritori started with the Immigration and Naturalization Service in 1998. He retired from the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in 2022. He served in many different positions, including Deputy Field Office Director for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the Denver, Colorado area of responsibility before being promoted to Field Office Director in 2020. Mr. Grant Newman is the Director of Government Relations for the Immigration Accountability Project, a nonpartisan organization that analyzes current and proposed federal immigration policies to educate the public and hold elected officials accountable to their oath and to defend the United States and its citizens. Mr. Newman has worked in immigration policy since 2012, most recently at Numbers USA Education and Research Foundation. He received a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Christopher Newport University and his Juris Doctorate from Regent University School of Law. Mr. David Byer is the Director of Immigration Studies at the Cato Institute. He has a BA in Political Science from Grove City College in Pennsylvania. And then finally, we have Ms. Jessica Vaughn. She is the Director of Policy Studies for the Center on Immigration Studies. Her area of expertise is immigration policy and operations, covering topics such as unaccompanied alien children, visa programs, immigration benefits, and immigration enforcement. Ms. Vaughn has a master's degree from Georgetown University and a bachelor's degree from Washington College in Maryland. I want to welcome our witnesses, thank them for appearing today. We'll begin by swearing you in. Would you please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Let the record reflect the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. You may be seated. Please know your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony in 5 minutes, and we will begin with Mr. Fabritori. Oh, could you turn on your microphone?
Good morning, Chairman McClintock and Congresswoman Lofgren and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the privilege of appearing before you today to discuss the urgent need to address dangerous sanctuary jurisdictions, improve interior immigration enforcement, and recommit to policies that protect American citizens. Over the past 4 years, the erosion of immigration enforcement has had devastating consequences for our communities. Sanctuary policies, the abuse of prosecutorial discretion, and overwhelmed court dockets have created a system that shields criminal aliens and jeopardizes public safety. I want to emphasize one key point today. Weak border and immigration enforcement policies have allowed unvetted and dangerous criminal illegal aliens to enter and thrive within our borders, leaving Americans at risk, such as the case involving a Venezuelan criminal alien who crossed illegally in El Paso, Texas, and was released into the U.S. in 2023. He was charged with raping a 14-year-old girl while he was living in his employer's basement in Colorado. He had been arrested previously for possessing tools for forgery and counterfeiting and larceny, but was released without notifying ICE. Sanctuary jurisdictions claim to protect immigrant communities, but they do the opposite. They shelter criminal aliens, accommodating and increasing crimes like drug trafficking, violent assaults, and human trafficking. One stark example is the Tren de Aragua gang.
Stuck with nasal congestion? We've all been there. Afrin No Drip is here to help. Wow! Get ridiculously powerful nasal congestion relief in seconds. Stays right where it's sprayed. Whether it's allergies or a cold, Afrin is your go-to solution. Afrin, the wow is real.
Use as directed.
And murder. Despite law enforcement efforts, these issues persist because sanctuary policies actively hinder the sharing of information and cooperation with ICE. Sanctuary officials ignore ICE detainers, release violent offenders back into communities, and undermine the public trust in the justice system. A mother and her teenage son were killed by an illegal alien and repeat DUI offender in Colorado last December. They are just one of the many tragic consequences of this leniency. ICE data underscores the crisis. Nearly 7.8 million illegal aliens are on the non-detained docket, freely roaming American communities, including 1.4 million with final orders of removal, and even 13,000 individuals convicted of murder. Not only that, the dismissal of 700,000 immigration cases and administrative failures in another 200,000 cases are examples of the prior administration's opposition to enforcing immigration laws. The spread of criminal networks is also alarming. Cartels like Sinaloa and Jalisco exploit sanctuary policies to flood our communities with fentanyl and other lethal drugs. Last year alone, law enforcement seized more than 115 million fentanyl pills. Yet availability remains unchanged, showing that these cartels continue to operate with impunity. We must return to enforcing immigration laws passed by Congress. This includes 1, holding criminals accountable by reinstating ICE detainers and ensuring dangerous individuals are detained and deported. 2, safeguard American families by dismantling the gangs and cartels that threaten our neighborhoods. 3, strengthen the rule of law by fostering cooperation between ICE and local law enforcement. Unfortunately, the Biden administration's policies eroded the effectiveness of interior enforcement. This leniency sent a dangerous message encouraging illegal crossings while undermining the tools ICE needs to apprehend and remove criminal aliens. The results are evident in the tragic rise of fentanyl deaths, human trafficking, and violent crime linked to foreign-born cartels and gangs. Reversing these policies is not just an option, it's a necessity. We must empower ICE, restore cooperation with state and local enforcement, and invest in the resources that prioritize U.S. citizens' safety and well-being. Members of Congress, our community's safety and our nation's stability depend on decisive action. Your top priority right now should be delivering the resources needed to assist the Trump administration in arresting, detaining, and removing illegal aliens. I urge you to preempt sanctuary policies and reinstate effective interior enforcement tools so that we can turn this vision into reality. Thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions you have.